Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J, and I'm here with Ashley Nicole Moss.
I can see we're all good. Had to clean
Yes.
my glasses, but we're back here.
Those came through in the clutch. Glad you
Yeah.
put them on right before the show started. Because we have a lot to talk about, Ashley. We are going to break down everything Sweet 16 and get ready for the Elite Eight live right here on YouTube. So really excited that all of you are here with us tonight. Make sure that you put your questions and everything down below so that we can have this conversation about all these fantastic games that we watched.
Absolutely. And so we can continue having these types of conversations and these types of shows. Make sure you are locked into all of our social media channels, as Alicia is pointing to below. We're on every social media platform. And also make sure you are liked, subscribed, and following our YouTube page, because that is where you'll get notifications like this, that we are going live after a big event. And if you are somebody who needs time to digest everything you have just witnessed, don't worry, we feel you. If you want to listen to us at a later time, scan this QR code right here and we will pop up wherever you get your pods. We are on Spotify, we're on Apple. So look, it's March Madness and it's no reason to not be tapped in with us right here at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T.
That's right. Tap in, because we have so many shows coming at you, especially for the women's, Elite Eight and Final Four that's coming up. So make sure that you tap in on all levels. And Ashley, I don't know if people aren't tapping in to the Sweet 16 and all the games that are to come in the Elite Eight, I don't know what they're doing, because it has been some phenomenal basketball. And let's just do a little recap of who won, who's going to the next round. So Duke over North Carolina, 47-38. South Carolina beat Maryland 71-67. UCLA over Ole Miss. Yeah, definite close one. UCLA over Ole Miss 76-62. LSU lives to see another day and go to the Elite Eight over NC State 80-73. TCU, which we will definitely be talking about, won over Notre Dame 71-62. Definitely go back and watch that if you didn't get to see it. Texas over Tennessee 67-59. And then this was the largest margin of victory in the Sweet 16. Yukon over Oklahoma 82-59. And the game that just ended was USC over Kansas State 67-51. Man, so many things to talk about, but let's just start with which matchup met the hype, Ashley. Like, which one of these matchups met that?
So many of them met the hype, right? I feel like LSU, NC State was an exciting watch. TCU, Notre Dame, just because you and I have both been riding the HVL Express the entire tournament. I love the video of Jalen Suggs, her boyfriend, who plays for the Orlando Magic, and her dad like chest bumping after HVL 3. I thought that was really cute. Loved it. If her dad is a character, I am here for it. If I was a hooper, that would be my dad.
Okay. My dad too.
Right? Like, listen, I really also, obviously it was a blowout, but Yukon, Oklahoma, for the simple fact, Paige Bueckers 40 points, the most in NCAA tournament history from a Yukon player. Just absolutely insane what she's been doing all tournament long. I'm so excited we're seeing her and going to continue seeing her healthy, God willing. And then I think you have to say USC, Kansas State, just for the simple fact, we all know they're without Juju Watkins. That's a huge loss to the team. And I think the fact that they have not only been able to overcome and win the game that she actually went out with her injury, but then go ahead and win this game without her, just says a lot about the talent of this USC team. And I'm excited to continue watching them. And I love the Juju t-shirts that they were wearing. I thought that was a really nice, sentimental, just cute touch. So
yeah, I absolutely love those shirts too. They also had the Funko Pops of her. I don't know if you saw that, but those are actually something that I was trying to buy earlier this year, even though I'm not really a Funko Pop girl, but I was like, that one I'll buy. But when you look at this question, like you said, it's hard to answer because all of these matchups are meeting the hype to me right now. Love watching all these teams battle out. And I mean, women's basketball this year has been like that all season. So
Yeah.
didn't expect anything less from the tournament. Now, there are some players that are definitely standing out. And I'm just going to start with Paige Bueckers. I mean, she's always a standout, but what she did today was nothing short of phenomenal. When you look at all of the generational players that have come out of Yukon, and have affected women's basketball in the way that they have. And for her to set records that none of them have set before
Yeah.
is phenomenal. I mean, career best and Yukon record for an NCAA tournament game, 40 points, 6 of 8 from the 3, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. I mean, first Yukon player with 3 career 30-point games in NCAA history is insane. So she is definitely one that stood out to me today specifically. But what player has stood out to you?
There's a few players. I think you said it with Paige. I think that is just an incredible accomplishment. And just because she's been doing that all season long, I think Lauren Betts has been phenomenal. You said it a few shows ago, bet on Betts. 31 points from her, 15 of 16 for shooting, 10 rebounds. First D1 player to have 30 points, 10 rebounds, and shoot at least 80% from the floor in back-to-back games. She has just been incredible, a generational player, if you ask me. And I know that Corey Close referred to her the same way, so we're on the same page there. I got to give, again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but HVL, I'm going to give her accolades once again. It's the HVL Redemption Tour, and I am here for it. I just love that she not only is killing it, but I think it's just watching her do it with so much joy and so much peace in her game that it's allowing her to kill it. Obviously, we know she has the skill set, but we talked about it on our last show, her struggles with her mental health and how that really affected just the way she viewed her life, and just not just basketball, but her life as a whole. And you can just tell that even in the peaks and the valleys of the game, the ebbs and the flow of the game, she enjoys every single moment of it. And it's really been enjoyable as a fan to just watch her just really enjoy what she's doing and enjoy how she's playing. So she's probably the performance that stood out to me the most, not just because of her stat line, but because of that aspect. And I'm just really excited to see her back on the court and winning. It always makes it a lot sweeter when you're actually winning too. So
it absolutely does. In addition to her outstanding play, freshmen are stepping up. I don't know if you've been noticing that, but there are freshmen on multiple teams that are stepping up and getting it done. I mean, of course, I'm going to give a shout out to Jordan Lee on Texas. She had 13 today. With Brianna Preston also had 12 points on her team. And then we just got through watching Kansas State versus USC. And listen, the freshman Kennedy Smith, she was all over the place, not only offensively, but also defensively. She was stealing. She was putting pressure on. She was doing all the things. And so I love to see that in the tournament as well. Players that you don't, especially freshmen, they're coming into this tournament, playing in it in the first time, and they're stepping up.
And to your point, it's also impressive because Kiki had an off night, which is a direct contrast to the performance she had when Juju went out, right? She put the team on her back and she really was like, Juju's out. I know it's the leader of our ship, but I got you now. And that was a completely different performance tonight. And every player has an off night, but in the Final Four, or not the Final Four, when you're trying to get to the Final Four in this tournament, we know that an off night can be a make or a break. There isn't a second opportunity to get it right. So she went 3 for 3 for 13, 7.7 rebounds, 1 for 4 on free throws, which is so uncharacteristic. She's normally an 82% free throw shooter. So the freshman once again stepping up for this USC team. Got to give them credit because they're stepping up in big moments, in clutch moments, and ultimately helping this team continue to hopefully get to the championship.
Yep. And we also just had a comment that was up from Chicago Cheetah, I believe. Yes, Chicago Cheetah. Come on with the name. Okay. But Anissa Morrow with 30, she also had 19 rebounds. She's just been a beast for LSU. So definitely somebody of note that we should be talking about and everyone should be talking about.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, when you look at the winning teams that are going on to the Elite Eight, what did we learn the most about the teams, or maybe even just a couple teams that you learned something about them that's going to, be either good or bad for them moving into the Elite Eight?
I want to save my answer for our next conversation because it has to do with South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say this just overall before we get into specifically South Carolina, because I know you and I are both going to have thoughts on this. And we were once again in the group chat getting prepared to potentially do an emergency pod. We didn't have to. I feel like we're testing our luck here. I will just say overall, every season can be different. And we're seeing teams that used to look so scary on paper. And although you would never admit it as a player, you kind of have some fear having to go against them in the tournament or just in the regular season as a whole. And you're seeing teams that maybe didn't strike that same fear. Now it's like, all right, you're looking around, you're looking to your left, you're looking to your right, like, oh, this is a different season. This is a different year. This is a different tournament. So for me, we'll get, like I said, specifically in South Carolina, because that's really my answer. But I will just say the thing that sticks out to me as a whole is just how drastically different this tournament is from the last.
Absolutely. And I think we're in the season of anyone can get it. So literally, the things that I've learned from all of these teams is that you just have to be prepared and have to understand and respect that the team that you're playing is capable of beating you. I know that's just a thing you should think of every time you go into a contest, but I think it is so true with these matchups that we're seeing and the matchups that we will see in the Elite Eight is that they're all prepared to win this tournament. I can't think of one that couldn't.
Yeah.
So, I'm just really looking forward to the competitiveness and, I'm obviously looking forward to people stepping up. We've been seeing that time and time again as well. But I mean, this is nothing to play with. One thing, we're going to have the conversation that you're talking about. And actually, we could probably just start it because that's kind of like one of the points that I have right now would be about that.
Let's go into it then. We're going to talk about the woes of South Carolina. And we've been talking about this team all season long, and rightfully so. Dawn Staley is one of the best to ever do it. And South Carolina as a program has produced some of the best we've ever seen and will continue to do so. But one of the things that we have constantly been talking about, even going back to the regular season, is that the fact that this team is losing games and the fashion in which they're losing, and even the games that they're winning, they're a little bit too close for comfort. They don't look as unbeatable as they have in previous years. And we were talking about that in the WNBA with some teams as well, which is part of the reasons why I feel like the playoffs look a lot different this season than they did in previous seasons. So while South Carolina may have won their matchup against Maryland, they exited the Sweet 16 and are now headed to the Elite Eight. There's still plenty that they want to work towards and fix when it comes to their game as they hopefully continue to advance. Fulwiley in the tourney against TNTC, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks. Against IU, 3 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 block. Only played 10 minutes. That's the kicker here. Against Maryland, this is where the big numbers come in. 23 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and was the team's second leading scorer in the regular season. Now, the interesting question is about South Carolina. One has to do with Fulwiley and would you then change your starting lineup if you are Dawn Staley, looking at what worked and what hasn't worked so far in this tournament, where you stumbled, where you haven't stumbled? But I think overall, it's just there's a lot of games, and specifically talking about these last 2 games, back-to-back games, where this team has stumbled, and it has been that turnaround after halftime where they've once again flipped that switch and turned into the South Carolina team we're used to seeing. And we joke because Dawn Staley is cursing them out in the locker room, which is probably true. But When you look at their numbers, specifically talk about Maryland, they committed 18 turnovers. So ball security has been an absolute problem so far for South Carolina. And those 18 turnovers resulted in 18 points for Maryland. Whereas South Carolina just had 7 points off of turnovers, despite forcing 14 of them. So they're forcing, but they're only converting, at least in that game, on half. One of their players actually said, if we play like this again, we're going home Sunday. So the players know this is not up to par with Dawn Staley-led teams. The players know it's not up to par with what we're used to seeing from South Carolina. But I guess my question for you is, if you're South Carolina, and if you are the team going against South Carolina, Duke in this case, there's a lot of material out there on how to beat them. And if you're South Carolina, you also these past few games have essentially been beating yourself. And it's only a matter of time before a really great team like Duke takes advantage of that to the point where you can't dig yourself out of that hole.
Well, yeah. And when you're playing Duke, first of all, you have to understand they're a really good defensive team. Just like South Carolina is a good defensive team. They're going to be going, head to head in that respect. I mean, the last time that they played each other, and we're going to talk about this matchup in a few. So I don't want to get too deep into this, but the last time the Gamecocks won by like 9, but they were also two completely different teams at that point when they played. I say all that to say right now, the way that South Carolina is playing in Abby Sports earlier, there was a comment earlier that said South Carolina looks vulnerable, and I agree. They're showing teams that they can, be beaten. They're showing them that.
And how to do it.
And so the thing that is a little alarming to me is that, all of the players, Kit said something about how they felt like it was a loss, this last win. And you just read the quote, if we play like this again, we're going to go home Sunday. The players know that they're not playing up to par and what they could be playing, but they're still not coming with it all the way in these games. They're sliding by right now, and they should be excited about that part that they're in it still. But they're not playing the South Carolina basketball that we have seen and that we know that they can play. And no longer is, they have had a stellar run. Obviously they are vying to be the champions again. And I believe that they could do it, but they also have to understand that each and every one of these teams have stepped up in a way to beat them because they have been so good. And so they are equipped to do it. And South Carolina has to step it up because they've just been eking by, and in the games, I'm not saying this is the case, but just from the outside looking in, it doesn't look like they have that urgency. It looks like they're like, well, we're going to rally and we'll still win. No, that's not going to happen. I don't think against Duke or anybody else. Right. So
it's interesting, right? Because when we were talking about this team earlier in the season, we said sometimes there's a thing called winner's fatigue, and you get so accustomed to winning that you forget how to lose and you forget how to fight against adversity because you just blow out every team that you play, right? And we said that some of the losses that they face in the regular season could be good for them because now it's like, that you bleed just like everybody else does and you can be beaten. And if you don't want to feel that again, this is how you prevent it. And it seems like those losses and the feeling of those losses has kind of just faded from their memory, and they're still playing with, to your point, a laxness, if that's a word,
it is
to
today.
Their game. It is today to their game. And one of the things that my dad told me, and this is even when I was like playing basketball at a young age, and then when I started analyzing the game, is playing from behind is debilitating. And eventually it catches up to you because you'll play a team that if you want to go ahead and play with your food, as we say in basketball, they're going to make sure that you can't come back. And you're developing bad habits. And the worst time to develop bad habits is in a tournament, is in the playoffs, because the level of competition, especially now that we're talking about the Elite Eight, this is not, a 1 seed versus a 12th seed. You're playing the best of the best. And if there is a 12th seed in the tournament, it's not, but just to say that they're there for a reason. And you can't continue to treat your opponents and play your game like it's a guarantee that you're going to come out on the winning end, because there's not, and eventually you won't. So it's going to be interesting, the version of South Carolina we get against Duke. Yeah. I say that.
And I'm just going to be honest, if I'm watching the way that they played, especially this last game, I'm not saying that I don't have a healthy respect for them as a player, because I do, but they just don't seem as untouchable as they did in the past. So that's definitely something. And I also wanted to talk about Fulwiley being moved to the starting 5. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that I would do that at this point in the season. Yes. Do her numbers show that she should? Yeah. Okay. Yes. But also at the same time, you're kind of messing up the makeup of what you have been doing. If I just don't feel like some players, and I'm not saying her specifically, but some players play better off the bench. Some players want to play off the bench, to be honest with you. I wasn't one of those players, but definitely there are some. And then also, I just think at this point, you're in the tournament. It's not like I wouldn't do that. I personally wouldn't. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't disagree with you. I think that at this stage of the game, you're already dealing with so many issues with the team that you don't want to add a chemistry issue to the equation. This is, again, to your point, no knock to how she's been playing. It's just a little bit too late in the game to make that change. I feel like if we were still in round 64, even if we were in the Sweet 16, maybe, but I just don't think that this is the stage. You're headed into the Elite 8. This is not something you play with. So I would just kind of keep things how they were. But somebody who doesn't have to worry about being in that starting lineup, because she is the star, and I put that in all caps, HBL, because she is telling her haters, shh, be quiet and just watch me work. And we love it.
Yeah, we absolutely love it. I mean, she had 26-9 against Notre Dame. She set a single game NCAA record for TCU. I mean, single-handedly. HBL single-handedly outscored Notre Dame 12-10 in the final quarter. And she's made 5 Elite 8s with 3 different teams, which is huge. I think she's the only person to do that, I believe. Her coach, Mark Campbell, who is obviously a huge fan of hers and should be, called it insane. And Notre Dame's coach, Neil Ivey, she also had some really great words about HVL. I feel like she saw the ball going in and she kind of rose. You could tell her energy, her confidence was getting stronger play by play. I thought she made some really good defensive plays as well. This is that stage where great players emerge. I thought she had a really complete game. And I couldn't agree more. It was so fantastic just to see her get in there, do her HBL thing. Like, we've seen her play like this before, but it's just great at this stage in the tournament to see what she did with TCU. I want to say Sedona Prince also had a fantastic game as well as other players on the team, but they're willing themselves to win this. You know, it's great to see a program. A lot of people were saying it was like a Cinderella thing. I don't know if I agree with that all the way, given the season that they had. I think that's like disrespect to the season they had. They're also a number 2 seed, but I love seeing a program that literally 2 years ago, didn't even have a full squad to see what they're doing now. Love to see it, and love to see HVO come in there and say, hey, I mean, some of you wanted to know like what it was like against actual competition. So let me show you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to add, and I don't have anything to add that I haven't already said. I'll just say this, make it quick and easy. I'm just really happy for her. I'm really happy for her, not just as a basketball player, but the conversation we had last show. I'm just happy for her as a person. It's to find just your joy again in life, in your sport, or whatever it is that brings you passion. It doesn't have to necessarily be a sport. Just to find that zest for life again. And to be able to just really be okay with feeling all the emotions that life will bring your way, and it not be the end of the world, and for you to see and just feel the good in everything, even if it's not the best moments, and even if they're moments of adversity and things like that. I'm just really happy for her as a person. And then obviously the basketball stuff is amazing to watch as a fan of the game. And we mentioned it, Jalen Suggs and her dad were absolutely hilarious. I'm just happy for her as a person. And it's, you know, I'm rooting for her. I know you're rooting for her. I would love to see her go all the way. It's just a great redemption story. And it just reminds people there's light at the end of the tunnel with no matter what you're going through, although it's hard to sometimes persevere through things, and it's hard to believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel and there's better days ahead. I'm a firm believer, and I think stories like this serve as a reminder to people that if you fight through things and you persevere, that life will reward you with better days. So I'm just happy she's experiencing her better days. So shout out to her, shout out to TCU. I know they have fans in both of us here, and from my timeline, they got a whole lot of other fans. It's like it's the horned frog thing, right? One of my good friends actually used to dance for TCU. I think it's this, right?
Don't start me lying because I'll do it wrong. But I will say,
hopefully, I'm not doing it wrong. Liv,
no,
I hope you forgive me.
Somebody rate it. But I also wanted to say too, there's a lot of conversation about the transfer portal, but I will tell you this is one of the reasons why I love it, because gone are the years where a player could be in a situation where they don't love basketball and they don't, want to play, and it's just not a situation that's conducive to them as a player, or, it wasn't what they were sold for it to be when they went in there. Mm-hmm. Gone are those days where they have to stay or sit out. And now they're able to go to programs that will bring the best out in who they are and who they are as a player. People talked a lot about her being on different teams and, moving through all of these teams. Well, you see why. Now she's in a program that understands who she is. And they brought together a whole bunch of people who needed to be in that situation as well, that weren't in good situations and came in. And now the squad is on. Like, they're doing what they need to do, and they're playing in the ways that they have always wanted to play. And that's one of the reasons why I love the transfer portal, because of situations just like this with TCU.
Absolutely. And we're going to see more of TCU in the Elite Eight, and we are going to talk about the Elite Eight right now in our Elite Eight preview. Now, our first matchup, we don't have to go too in depth. I feel like we talked a lot about Duke versus South Carolina just because we were talking about South Carolina as a whole. So I'll save some of our more in-depth conversations for these other matchups, but overall, let's just make a pick. Duke versus South Carolina. We've been talking about how South Carolina hasn't looked that good. We talked about how Duke has a lot of defensive firepower that could make it hard for South Carolina, harder, I should say, than it's already been. Alicia, I know how hard you ride for South Carolina. I will tell you this. I am somebody who always, between the Battle of North Carolina, always went with UNC, so I can't pick Duke just on principle. So I'm going to lean towards South Carolina, and I hope that good energy makes them do better than I've seen them do so far. So I'm going South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm nervous about this game. I'm not going to lie. But what I hope happens is that South Carolina steps up, redeems themselves, and they win this game over Duke. That is what I feel.
That you're thinking of, that you want to step up?
Man, I mean, the team in general needs to, but I would say, Kitts has to have a huge game. Obviously, Morrow is always going to have a good, she showed consistently that she's going to have a good game.
Mm-hmm. Raven Johnson, as Emma pointed out.
Yeah, there's so many people. I don't know. They just need to overall, as a team, step up and play South Carolina basketball the way that they know that they can. I would say collectively, because, and they know it. After the game, so many people, like we just talked about in that, in the segment that we had about it, they knew that they didn't play well. They almost kind of lightweight said they shouldn't even be in the next round because of the way that they played. So do something about it. That's what I want to see.
Do something about it. And on that note, we're going to move on to you. That's a mic drop. We're going to talk UCLA versus LSU because there's been a lot of chatter between these two teams. UCLA has used their Sweet 16 loss to LSU last season as motivation this year. Kiki Rice, she said, quote, last year, LSU was the tougher team in that matchup, and a lot of our work during the offseason, just throughout this entire year, has been how can we build that collective toughness to be ready for those matchups, be ready for physical teams, be ready for those kind of environments. Now, Kim Mulkey wasn't having any of that. She said, Kiki, I got something for you. In her Michael Jackson outfit, she said, quote, so they used our loss to fuel their season. I don't know that we really thought about that win very much. I'm sure that if it was the last game of the season for them, maybe it does fuel them, but I just remember we won. Can't remember the details. I will say this. I don't agree with everything Kim says it does, but that was a bar.
It was a bar, but actually, no, it was a bar. But I will say that they were thinking about something that happened with UCLA last year because Flage said that there was this article. I don't know if you remember it, but they called LSU the dirty debutantes. I don't know if you remember that from last year, but
I don't remember that.
Oh. Yeah, it was an article full of ridiculousness, but that was like the thing that she cited is kind of like stood out to her in the article. And it was said that Coach Close retweeted that article. Wow. And so she was talking about remembering that. So I'm just saying they both remembering a lot about last year. That's all I'm saying.
It's a little bit of a flex though, because one player for one team is saying they use the loss as motivation, and the other, it's kind of like the Mariah, like, I don't know her because all I remember is that we won. So next. Not only did we win, but we won one. So like, this is going to be fun. Obviously, whenever two teams are kind of jarring at each other in quotes and in the media, makes for a little different level of excitement. I expect Lauren Betts to have a good game, but we're going to need someone else to step up because she was spotted on the sideline or on the bench rather last time in UCLA's previous game, and basically was on the bench saying, I can't breathe. I'm so effing tired. And that just means you got one person doing a whole lot of the work and nobody else is stepping up. Now, obviously, you putting up those kind of numbers, even her, she's only human. Your body fatigue kicks in eventually, and your productivity can take a hit for that. So I need, Kiki and everybody else to kind of fill in, and all their role players to kind of fill in the voids. Because I think, and we've been talking about this, LSU's rolling at the right time. There was concerns due to the injuries, but they've been able to persevere and come back stronger. And now they got their girls back, and that's making a difference. So if I had to pick someone, though, I'm still leaning towards UCLA. I still think overall, I just like how they look offensively, defensively, as a team, as a whole. But I think this is going to come down to the wire. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went into overtime.
It is. It's going to be a great game. And I think I said the wrong name when we were talking about South Carolina, so I apologize. But what I'm looking forward to in this matchup is Anissa Morrow and Betts together. I think that is going to be an epic matchup for sure. And this one's hard for me because LSU is one of those teams that is always like, listen, we got this. And I don't care who they're playing. I don't care, who the opponent is. So I don't know. This one's hard for me. UCLA has been looking great. They're going to need more players to really, step up in this game outside of Betts, because I think that Morrow is going to give her a problem. Sure. You know what I'm saying? But sure. And yeah, LSU definitely does not fear UCLA in any way, shape, or form. So Ashley, I'm actually leaning towards LSU on this one.
Okay,
I am, and this is my game to. I am so excited to. This is my your popcorn game.
Oh, this is going to be good for the party then, because we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah. So we will have a lot to discuss. One of us will come out the winner and the other a loser. But true. I know that This is where it gets interesting for you, this next matchup, because we've been very high on the TCU train, but I also know that you have a direct connection to Texas, and they are our next matchup in the Battle of Texas. That's Texas versus TCU. Biggest matchup for these two teams in their history. And again, it's the battle for the Lone Star State. Texas has a 53-4 edge in the series, meaning TCU has beaten Texas just 4 times, but that's before HVL got there, and she got the magic touch right now, baby. The biggest thing for TCU, some of the notes, though, clean up turnovers, take care of that ball security. For Texas, we already know Madison Booker is the key, 17.6 rebounds in that win against Tennessee. And then HVL, no explanation needed. You know where I'm leaning. I'm sticking with the Frogs, but I want to hear your answer because I know this is going to be a little bit harder for you to answer. So I want you to pour your heart out and keep it a buck.
My heart, obviously, shout out to Jordan Lee. My heart wants Texas to win. I'm not going to lie. Like, I want them to advance. Obviously, you know, I have a tie to Jordan. I really want her team to advance, and I want her to advance. She had an excellent game this game. I'm proud of her. Okay, let's just be clear. And I'm keeping it a buck because I am. But I wouldn't want to play TCU right now. I wouldn't. I just would not want to, because it just seems like they obviously have a lot of momentum going behind them. They have a lot of fans going behind them. They have their will. That is, it just seems like it's on 1,000 right now. To what is their slogan? Emma, the coach was wearing the shirt, keep winning or something like that. That's terrible. It's not the same thing. But he was not playing. He ripped off his shirt and he had the shirt on underneath it just to show them that he believed in them the whole time. So I just feel like TCU has had a stellar year. They have a really, really good team. They were seeded number 2 for a reason. And that magic that is behind them, HVL, and just the story that is going on there, and just her play, her sheer play. I like I said, I want Texas to win, but I feel like TCU might have it.
TCU? Okay.
Yes. I hate saying that out loud.
I know it pains
but I actually, I like both teams, and I think that, you know, Texas is a great team as well, but I feel like, you know, my mind looking at everything is just, it's leaning towards TCU.
I appreciate
but that is hard, man.
As hard as that was for you, this is going to be hard for me, not because I'm not able to make a pick, just because I wanted a different game. And that is our last matchup, and that's Yukon versus USC. I wanted Paige versus Juju. That was what I was waiting for. And unfortunately, that is not the game that we're going to get, which is why it makes it easier for me to make my pick of Yukon. If Juju was on that floor, my heart would have been torn in 2 different directions. But Yukon, absolutely rolling. Paige Bueckers is a gangster. I just am in awe every time she plays a game. It's insane. She's in her groove. This team is healthy. They are cooking. Gino looks at Paige with such love and admiration and affection. Looks like he's gonna cry every time she walks.
He said he wasn't. But anyway,
but I don't believe him.
Well, actually, I don't know if he said he wasn't. I think it was Sue Bird that said there's no shot he was crying. That's what it was.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And if we haven't gotten those tears, they're coming. USC, look, as much as the freshmen have been stepping up, Kiki obviously needs to play better.
Yeah.
I just think that Paige is on an absolute streaker. She's on a heater. And for me, I just can't go against Yukon without USC having Juju. It's a different game. It's a different level of competition. And for me, it's that simple. Give me Yukon, give me Paige. But yeah, it's not the game. It's not the version of the game that I wanted, and that's very disappointing for me.
You know, with Paige not winning a chip, you know, ever in her career, not to say that she has to, but with that, with the team that is around her, you have AZ, you have Sarah Strong.
Mhm.
I mean, and you have players that are just stepping up in different ways on that
Right.
team. Not just the stars that we hear about all the time, but you also just have her play. I mean, she is the way that she is scoring at will, the way that she is affecting both ends of the floor, it's just beauty in motion, to be honest. Basketball beauty in
Absolutely.
motion to watch. And I personally, as much as I would love for the story to continue for USC to win for Juju, I just can't see it given what we saw today from Paige and from that Yukon team.
Yeah.
I just see them advancing for sure. I love what the team is doing, and obviously for them to have any chance, Kiki does need to step up in big ways. But I see UConn advancing for sure.
Definitely. We're in agreement there. Now, before we wrap up the show, Emma says we have a question from one of our viewers. So, question: do y'all feel like LSU, South Carolina, USC, and Texas all had challenging games for their last wins? I think everybody's been a challenging game in some way, shape, or form. I think when you talk about South Carolina specifically, I mean, the fact that their game came down to the last 3.5 minutes, I would say, roughly, of that game. I think whenever you're playing from behind, I think whenever you are struggling to convert shots, especially when you're forcing turnovers, I would definitely say that's challenging. It may not be challenging on paper when you look at it, but it's a different game when that buzzer sounds and the game starts flowing. So I would definitely say, I mean, USC, they lost their star player. What's more challenging than that? So I would think all of these games have been challenging in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not in a traditional sense, but there's been things that have arisen that have caused some level of challenge for each one of these teams.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a level of challenge. If I would say the least challenging game, and I think you could see that in the margin of victory, was UConn versus Oklahoma.
I mean, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely, I think at this point, with the teams that we have playing in this tournament and the teams that we've had playing all year,
Right.
everything is a challenge from here on out. And actually, most of the games have been, challenging.
For sure.
So, but I would say at this level, especially, but yeah, there's different levels of challenging for sure. But I think they've all had a challenge. Yeah.
Absolutely. Appreciate the question though. Okay, so we are going to stay put and get ready for the Elite Eight. You don't want to miss that, but Emma apparently has a special picture for us before we roll.
Nope. Emma.
Yeah, that wasn't
trouble, Emma.
There wasn't yeah, I am trying to think of something positives to say here. I will say this: MJ's fit was way more expensive. Like, that was custom.
Yes.
Kim should have left it alone because it looks like she's wearing like the cheap version, the knockoff version, what's the Alibaba version, whatever it is. Like, girl, you could have left that alone. Black, to Emma's point, nice color, sure. Didn't have to be that kind of black. But yeah, Kim, you wear some crazy outfits. You should have left the king alone, though. We could have done
without that, but she's doing exactly what she wants us to do. We're sitting here talking about it.
Exactly.
It's the strategy. She knows that she
doesn't think
those are cute. Huh?
Technically, Emma made us.
Emma did.
Guys, listen, while we yell at Emma, we want to remind you all to follow us on our social media channels. They're here listed below. And also make sure you are subscribed to YouTube, notifications all the way up, because we have another special edition show coming your way after the Elite Eight. You're not going to want to miss that. We also have one for the championship. Listen, March Madness is not over, but you are not going to know when any of these are dropping if you are not subscribed. And at the end of the show, scan the QR code if you happen to miss the show live and you want to listen on your way into work or whatever the case may be, you scan that QR code. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify. Our Final Four preview is Monday. So make sure you are subscribed before then, because you want to know when we are doing that. Again, it's Monday, and the time will be released soon. So make sure you keep it locked right here at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T, and we will see you soon.
See you on Monday.